Hey, it's classic Gbody, and just filming another Hurst Olds update. Basically, what I have here sitting on the floor is the headliner board that I pulled out of the Hurst Olds a couple of weeks ago, finally getting around to working on it. And what happens to a lot of the GM cars, you know, from the 70s, late 70s, 80s, and probably throughout most of the 90s is the headliners start to fall. Headliner gets in your hair, gets in your face, and what comes with that is that nasty black foam that falls apart and falls down and gets all over your interior as well. You know, once these headliners fall down, what a lot of people think happens is the glue lets go, they must use cheap glue. Really what happens is the actual headliner material separates from the foam because the foam is what deteriorates. It's not the glue itself. And I just want to show you, I have a piece of headliner material that I used when I did the headliner in my 80 Cutlass. And just to show you what it is, it's a colored material that is glued to a thin piece of foam. And what happens is the colored material separates from the foam because the foam ages and from the heat, and that it gets brittle, and that's what separates from the foam itself. And the foam is what's left on the board, and this is what deteriorates and gets all over your interior, gets all over your hair. And the absolute worst part is removing that old foam from the board itself. It's a very messy job, and it's kind of sticky and gets gummy over time. And you know, a couple of different methods that I've used over the years of working on my cars is a wire brush. I used a wire brush on the end of a drill. This you can use, except you have to be extremely careful that you don't dig into the headliner board itself, because this essentially is just a piece of styrofoam. It can be very, very brittle. I've used a grill brush. You know, you just go ahead and brush it and try to get it off, but the brush gets all packed with that foam, and it really doesn't work very well. And then you got the old small little wire hand brush. But what I found that works the absolute best is when removing this foam is a good old 3M Scotch-Brite pad. I mean, this basically removed that foam as if I was brushing dust off the floor. Just very easy. Just folded it over and literally just brushed it right off, and it came clean. It came just as clean as you see it here, and it's basically ready for glue. You know, I mentioned that these boards are made out of thin styrofoam, and when GM puts these headliners in the cars and they screw the visors down, they screw the seat belts down, they screw the coat hooks down, anywhere where there is a screw hole or a mount, the headliner board cracks, or you just end up getting stress cracks, or you might even break it pulling it out yourself, just because they're kind of difficult to pull out. And when repairing these cracks and breaks, I've used duct tape, I've used pieces of cardboard that I glued to the back side of it, but that takes a lot of time, and duct tape really isn't that strong unless you put about 10 layers of it. So this time around, I was really trying to think of what would be the absolute best solution to fix the board to make it just as strong, if not stronger, as it was when it was new. Let me flip it over here. You can see a bunch of aluminum tape. And what I did was I had some aluminum tape that you use for ductwork, repairing ductwork, you know, holes or anything, just for the ductwork in your house, for your central air. This stuff is pretty thick. You can buy it in different thicknesses. It has an extremely strong adhesive on the back of it. And all I did was went around and put several layers, probably 3 to 4, in all the broken areas, all the brittle areas. You can see these corners where the visors go. I just put layers of tape on there, and it is extremely strong. I mean, I'm holding up this corner right now that was completely broken off, and that's exactly what I did. So I found that using the 3M Scotch-Brite pad to remove the old foam and use the aluminum tape for home ductwork, I feel works the best. And what I'm going to do next is use the 3M, let me see, I have some right over here. I should have grabbed a can of this. The 3M Super Trim Adhesive number 08090. This is what I've used in the past. And what I do also is a good trick is right before you're about to spray down your adhesive, I take some lacquer thinner, pour it into the spray gun, and coat this entire board with lacquer thinner. And what that does is soften up the original glue that's still left on here, because when you remove the foam, believe it or not, it's still slightly tacky. When you spray down this entire board with lacquer thinner, it softens up that glue. Then you immediately take your can of aerosol spray, coat that down. As that is tacking up, coat the back side of the headliner material. Let that sit for about a minute or two, let that get tacky. Always, always do this in the shade or in the garage. And if you're doing it outside, do not do it on a windy day or you will run into some big trouble. What's up, Moby? So, lay down the foam board, or the foam headliner. And I've also used a rolling pin as well. And just work your way, I like working from the center out, and then from the center out. Working all the curves, because once that sticks, it's a very difficult job to pull that back off. You're going to end up stretching the material. So you're better off doing it with two people, so one person could hold the headliner while you're laying it down on the board. And you have to make sure you get in all these curves. And then GM also on the Gbodies has this this little bump right here for reinforcement on the board itself, and just to give the headliner a little bit of styling. So that's pretty much it. Just the tips that I've learned over time doing headliners on GM cars. Thanks for watching. Classic Gbody.